were sized for different kinds of functions. And you could argue that the octopus eye, and I'll talk about this at the very end, has a number of elements that make it essentially superior to the human eye in some interesting ways. Comment, question?
Yeah. Are all invertebrate eyes wired like forward?
Yeah, not backwards. The octopus eye, you tell me, are all the complex eyes in the mollusk lineage, are they all wired that way? That's what I thought, yeah. So at least in that lineage they are.
Particularly in the central part.
Yeah, that's where you see it, because that would be the complex eyes. Yeah. So yeah, I would assume that'd be true. Okay, so here we go. Onward.
From the light energy. This electrical signal is then sent along through the optic nerve back into the brain.
And that's translated into the image that we actually see.
The eye really is extraordinary, but can something so complex evolve in gradual stages?
To find the answer, I've come to meet world-renowned evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins.
Richard, the eye is such a complex structure. I can understand why some people find it hard to believe it evolved out of nothing. Even Darwin commented on its complexity, didn't he?
Yes, Darwin said that it was impossible to imagine that it could have evolved by gradual degrees, but reason tells me that if there were a series of gradual improvements, then it would be easy for it to have evolved by natural selection. And you find all over the animal kingdom eyes in various stages of what look like stages of evolution.
And the great thing about this is that we've got examples of the intermediate stages of this evolution in modern day animals.
So, what would the first step be?
And here, for example, is Euglena, which is a single-celled organism, just has a little eye spot at the head end of the cell. And that eye spot is just sensitive to light, so it can't form an image, it can't see anything. All it can tell is whether it's light or dark. So that could be the first step.
Okay.
But if you imagine that you had a sheet of cells, each of which is sensitive to light. This has been painted with a substance that glows in ultraviolet. So this is an ultraviolet light. And if we hold the ultraviolet light over, you can see it's sort of glowing.
Okay, so this demonstrates cells that are reacting to light.
Yes, that's just a flat sheet of cells.
Well, you can't tell what direction the light is coming from then.
But if you just gradually evolve a slight curve, turn it into a cup, light that's coming from that direction hits this side of the bent sheet of the cup. Whereas if the light's coming from over here, then the other side lights up. So you can tell what direction the light's coming from, and perhaps you could tell the direction that a predator's shadow is passing over.
This means that animals with cup eyes, like these planarian worms, have a huge evolutionary advantage over animals with just a flat eye.
Notice that if you need direction, you're probably moving towards mobility. So a flat, light-sensitive tissue, you might be able to survive, not really, if you're a mobile creature, you might be able to survive that way, but you'd be a lot better off if you're a more mobile creature if you had more information about direction.
And how do we progress from something that has a cup that can tell the direction of light to something that can actually form an image of what it's seeing?
Well, over evolutionary time, if you imagine that the cup gradually evolves to get deeper and deeper and deeper and close up the hole at the top, then you get a pinhole camera. Now, a pinhole camera is a pretty poor piece of work. It doesn't actually show you much of an image, but it does show you a crude image. You can actually see something. This is a pinhole camera here. In front is a little hole. There's a screen inside there.
Yeah.
Have a look. Okay. If I now hold this in front of the pinhole.
Okay. Wow, yeah, no, I can see the A. It's not too bad. I mean, it's blurry, obviously, and it's upside down, but yeah, I can see it.
And a perfect example of this next stage in the evolution of the eye can be seen in many aquariums.
This is the mollusk Nautilus, a relative of the extinct ammonite, with an eye on each side of its head that acts like a
You can kind of see it right there. All you've got is just a hole and a bold cup inside, and then some light-sensitive tissue, and weirdly enough, it forms two independent images of the world to each side. It's remarkable.
Oh,
We'll see some pinhole cameras in a moment.
Can see blurry images.
might be good enough for a Nautilus, but what if you wanted a bit more detail?
The solution to the problem, as anybody will tell
This
you,
is so
lens. And a proper man-made lens is exactly shaped. It's a glass, refracts light.
How on earth does that come about in nature?
Well, to get a really good image, you do need a decently curved lens. But any old bit of gunge, which is transparent, will do if it's just approximately curved.
Okay.
I mean, this is just a polythene bag full of water and just naturally falls into a curved shape. Now, if I stick this bag of water,
Bring the bag forward a bit. There. Perfect.
that's not what you might call a real lens. Think of that as just a blob of gunge in the cup eye.
So all I have to
But
do
if
is just
this
have some
gunge or
stuff
jelly hardened, it would form
in a
proper
curved
lens
pocket,
and
it
transmit
automatically turns
quite
into a
clearer
lens.
image. And we can see an example of this back at the aquarium.
Sea snails have a blob of jelly that acts like a very simple lens, so they can focus on an object even if that image is still a bit blurry. But it does mean they can make out food and predators.
And once you've got that, then because it works a bit better than nothing at all, you've got the raw material of the natural selection to go to work. And
Improve
over
on.
generation after generation after generation, just each stage, just slight improvement in the curvature, slight improvement in the transparency, and you've got a steady ramp of improvement all the way up to a proper lens, such as you get in the vertebrate eye.
So really the eye is a brilliant example of how complex structures, and then obviously simpler ones, can evolve quickly and easily.
The eye is sort of legendarily complicated, and so if you can show that that evolved very easily and quickly over time, then all the more easy it would have been to evolve something simple.
What's even more incredible is that as the eye evolved over millions of years, wildly differing species like monkeys and mollusks seem to have developed the same solutions.
And at the top of the mollusk evolutionary ladder is the octopus eye. It's got a proper lens, it can adjust its own exposure. In fact, its eye is pretty much like our own, except that it comes from a completely different evolutionary line.
So the octopus eye is really quite interesting. First off, both eyes work completely independently, and apparently the brain is able to process, because these are very complex eyes, extraordinarily different types of visual information. Ours are locked into a bony plane, and so the visual cortex has managed to figure out how to deal with this problem. Do you know what I'm doing? It's information from two different eyes. So if I'm standing here, you're in this part of my eye over here, but on this eye, you're over on this part of the eye. But if I move, they all move. They're on different parts of the eye. If I turn my head like this, now you're in different. So the very fact that your visual cortex has to figure out, okay, I've got left eye, I've got right eye. Now they're not like this. They're not like this, they're like this. So somehow the visual cortex has to line it all up, and then it erases the non-dominant eye's information that is duplicated. And it's doing that constantly as I move my head, so that I don't see two of you, or two of any of you, right? This is really quite fascinating. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do. But imagine that I had two completely different systems of information coming in. How would I even process them when there is no overlapping information? I have to figure out that this world over here is connected to this world over here. Do you see? I can't have it feel like I'm taking hallucinogenics and I'm seeing two different universes. They've got to fit together. Next off, their eye is wired forward, which is efficient, and they don't have a blind spot. But here's another weird one. Apparently, octopus eyes can actually understand polarization of light, which is a huge advantage in terms of how it is you manage different kinds of light conditions and how you understand what the light means. It's a really extraordinary system, and it just goes to show you, when I learned the little bit that I know about this, I began to realize, wow, this evolution thing is real. Because no designer would have backwards eyes and forwards eyes. No designer would sort of like develop all these, I think there's 7 different major eye lineages. You guys look that up, it's been a long time since I've been studying this. But there's 7 different lineages of eyes, all of which have their own particular issues, their own particular problems, and that they are stuck with. Insect eyes being the classic. Yes?
So on the video we said we can see today like the stages of evolution, like through
Yeah.
through different animals.
Yeah.
And one of the things I heard growing up is like, well, if evolution is real, then why can't we still see like different?
Because when you're climbing Mount Fitness, wherever you end up on the slope of Mount Fitness, why pay more cost? Well, every additional complexity of eye is more evolutionary additions, more problems you have to deal with. So if your eye is functioning right where you are, don't climb higher on the mountain. So for example, if you're what was the Nautilus that they showed you? If you're Nautilus, why have to get a lens and a proper structure of lens muscles and all the complexities of the brain when you can live with just having a simple pinhole camera? You're passing on your DNA. As long as you continue to pass on your DNA with that simple pinhole camera, you would never change it. The only logic of changing it is if you suddenly find yourself in circumstances where you're being eaten because your pinhole camera isn't good enough. So every stage of evolution is, evolution is not aiming towards better eyes. Evolution is just, what are you doing in your current environment? And this really goes back to E. coli. E. coli doesn't need any of this, and it's been winning the wars of evolution for 100 and some odd million years. So yeah, that's why you tend to see that. Comment, question?
Oh yeah, when you get dizzy or you're dazed, you tend to see like two things at once. Like you tend to see two of your hands. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Explain. I lost something there somehow.
It's like when your vision gets disrupted.
Why do you see? Well, that's because each of your eyes you have two eyes, so you're likely to see double. That's very normal because, again, your visual cortex has to figure out what's going on. There are two images going into your visual cortex, but you can only output one. And that's why it tends to happen. Okay, so that's the eye. And then so we kind of now accept that, the fact that we have all these different kinds of eyes, and in fact, the fact that the vertebrate eye, which we all think is the most amazing thing in the universe, isn't actually the ultimate thing in the universe, and that it isn't even the best possible design, maybe, that has led us to realize, this evolution thing really is something we should accept as real. Okay, but let's talk quickly about something which is really weird. Remember I said, let's say I offered you were going to go blind, and I offered you a little eye with 10% of the eye, and you said, fuck no, there's no way. Okay, so let me give you a real life circumstance. There is a deadly disease that involves macular degeneration where you may wake up one day and find out from your optometrist that you're going to go blind in 5 years. That happens to many people. So I say to you, listen, I tell you what, I'll give you an eyeball. All it is a metal eyeball with a little tiny hole in the front, and we'll build light-sensitive tissue in the back, and we'll attach it to your optic nerve, and that's all it is. It's literally a hole. I told you about the oatmeal box. This is the technical version of the oatmeal box. There's the light-sensitive tissue. Like I said, we'll attach it to your optic nerve. It's probably 10% of an eye. Will you take it? And you say, fuck no. I say, well, listen, I'll paint a little eyeball. No one will ever know. I'll make it look like the sclera, which is the white part of the eye. I'll make it look like it's all fine. You go, fuck no. Okay, here we go. Here is a black and white pinhole camera of an apartment building and a walkway. Here is a color pinhole hole camera eye. Isn't that amazing?
Better than no vision.
There you go. It goes to show you just how powerful these systems can be. You don't even need to build a lens. Now, this is an engineered pinhole camera. I mean, it's engineered, it's very precise. But that really is amazing, isn't it? So it goes to show, and by the way, the reason why I've now tripled down on the eye is it is a question of the midterm, just so you know, steps of an eye, so be aware of it. So yeah, it turns out that in fact, 10% of an eye can be useful. All right, but the next question is, how fast is selection? Okay, so, the Daphne's finches, That's pretty fast. It's a few thousand years maybe from the Ecuadorian finches to the Galapagos Islands. I don't know if you know much about dogs. So there's one kind of dog, a beagly dog, right? I love the mop dog thing. They always crack me up. Like somebody's like, I'm gonna be mopping my floors. So I just put a little handle on it and push them around. How long does it take for selection to sort of like produce all of these kinds of different creatures? Well, it's argued that the eye takes about 1 million years to go from a single light-sensitive tissue to a fully complex camera eye like ours. Probably a few thousand years for major changes in bird beaks, like you see in the Galapagos finches. Probably maybe, 10 to 20,000 years for dogs, yes?
One of the things that kind of show that is actually the evolution of what pugs used to look like versus what they currently look like now.
Really?
Yeah, because originally pugs used to look like small dogs. Yeah, and they were bred to look like the way they do now.
So artificial breeders can push selection, and we're going to talk about this in a few minutes. You guys beat me again. So artificial breeders can push things very fast. So imagine The Bachelor, right? You guys have all seen The Bachelor or The Bachelorette or whatever. Think about The Bachelor, instead of being a let's get couples together and get them married, let's look at it as a show where the whole idea is to get reproduction. And imagine you can go around the earth to find the very particular person you want to reproduce with. And you could keep doing that. And let's say you were looking for the tallest person on earth, right? If you could fly around and find the tallest person on earth, the tallest male and female, or however you're going to do your mating pattern, that's the simple biology, right? So we'll do male and female. You could get people taller and taller because you could selectively match only the tallest people, right? That's what artificial breeders do. They have the capacity to actually ensure that they are pushing the envelope. Speaking of, now I want to point out something, because we tend to think of species as being things that are real, and then when you were in high school you were taught that if creatures can interbreed, they are members of the same species. So I want to bring up this. Now if you are a small dog person, I am both a big and a small dog person, so I am able to insult myself. This of course is not a dog, it's a rat, okay? It's a rat thing. But don't get offended. I have my little rat thing in the car right now in the air conditioning, okay? And this thing is a frickin' horse, and it's probably bred so your kids can ride around on it. If you're a big dog person, I'm a big dog person too. I'm just using this for illustration. I invite you to figure out how these two are going to mate. Okay, so let's imagine this is the male, okay? So what we need is a ladder and some duct tape. Just duct tape it to the back of the female, and then all the sperm will have little GPS devices to find their way to where the womb is. You thought that was the worst. This is the male, and this is the female. In which case, this is kind of one of those squeaky toy party condoms. And when I told you it's going to get worse. And when this one gets pregnant, instead of giving birth, it goes, wow! It explodes with giant puppies flying to. Yeah, like a pinata. No, doesn't work. Oh, that was gruesome. Okay, so if nothing else, you will understand biology by the end of this class, even if you're like, what the fuck happened? So, obviously, these two can't mate. Yet, how can they be members of the same species? Okay, so this is your challenge.
I have like a small dog.
Alright. Hope this pen works. I got lots of pens today. So one of them, 2 of them, 3 of them work. We'll do blue and red. Those are the easiest to see. Okay. So the question is, what species. From small to large, okay? So it's obvious that the rat dog can never mate with the horse dog. So how can they be members of the same species? And I'm going to make a prediction for you. So you're going to I'm going to test you on this a little bit right now. So my prediction is, ready? For the next 10,000 years, as long as humans love their dogs, and we've loved our dogs for the past probably at least 20,000 years, I predict that the Chihuahua, that's what the rat dog really is, to be nice to the Chihuahua people here, and the Great Dane, to be nice to the Great Dane people here, are both members of the same species. They contain actually nearly identical DNA. I predict that for the next 10,000 years, despite the fact that these two dogs will never mate, that Chihuahuas and Great Danes will continue to have nearly identical DNA and will be members of the same species, even though no Chihuahua will ever mate with a Great Dane. How can that be true?
Have the same ancestor? I don't know.
We have the same ancestor that chimpanzees do. We're no longer the same species. See? That's where it gets hard. Yes?
Medical support, so like artificial insemination,
Nope.
C-sections.
No artificial means allowed. Nope. By the way, let me real quick. Biology is blood, shit, sex, and death. That's it. So you have already overthought the whole problem. You have to think dumb. Biology is dumb. Yes, go ahead. Your answers aren't. I meant biology is. I can see where that might have gone wrong. Go ahead, yeah.
They are technically from the same genus, but they change separately.
But that doesn't tell me why my prediction is likely to be true, that in 10,000 years, because remember, 7 million years ago, there was only one species. There was a pre-chimp, pre-human species. So how come my prediction is probably true? As long as humans love their dogs. Right, but then I can imagine where they become different species very rapidly. I'm saying no artificial means at all. Yeah. That's interesting. I'm actually arguing that their environment is the key. And that's the humans that love their dogs. Really interesting. But now you got to give me the specifics. How come they will both continue to have the same DNA, even though they will never mate together? And by the way, they don't mate together now. So how come they do have the same DNA? This is where biology actually becomes real. So you got to figure this one out. Shall I give another? Yeah, in the back.
Neighborhood dogs that have similar DNA, even though they aren't the same.
Right, but how will they continue to be that since they never mate together? And how are they still? What's weird is that dogs have very little variation genetically. Yeah.
So are they as close as we are to our ancestors?
Wow. I don't know the comparison of human versus genetic dog variation. I know it's very little in both species. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The small dogs will breed with like the slightly bigger dogs, and the slightly bigger dogs.
Son of a bitch. Okay. Got it in one. Almost no one ever gets all 100% in the first shot. Okay. So it turns out that species are not species. They are gene pools. Damn! That's really good. Biology major, but that's more than a biology major. Most biology majors don't get on the first round. I usually have to go about 75%, then 85%. Okay, so here's the thing. What's the dog in the middle? What does mutt mean? A mix of what? There, everything. So the chi, so now the only challenge left is give me all the in-betweens. A chi mates with a, well no, it has to be a non-chihuahua. So, boxer? Boxers are over here. That would be a very bizarre mating. Okay, so chi goes with, how about like pom, a pom, yeah, absolutely. A pom mates with a, oh yeah, French bulldog, that's me. Frenchie. Mates with a terriers. The terriers go all over the place for sure. Mates with a corgi, the world's weirdest dog, collie with pug legs. Mates with a what?
Shiba?
Huh?
Shiba?
Whatever, sure. How do you spell it?
S-H-I-B-A.
Shiba, sure, okay.
They look like curly somewhat.
Okay, so mutt to boxer to pit. Yep, there you go, pit. Then German. Then there we go. We're getting there. And then there's the rots, right? And then you get the what's that? Those are over here. Yep, Saints. Then you get the great thing, the gigantic monster dogs. Have you seen some of the Great Danes? They stand like this to people. Like what do you feed them? I know.
Humans.
So here's what happens: the blood, the genes from the chi are flowing inward, and from the Frenchie, and from the terrier, and from the corgi. The genes from the Great Dane, as it mates with a saint, with a rot, with a husky, they're flowing inward. And here's where it gets weird. They begin to flow across the bell curve because the pits mate with the corgis or with the Shibas, or not the boxers, the mutts with the terriers. And this is why, in the end, the genes of the Chi end up in the Great Dane, and the genes of the Great Dane end up in the Chi, because there is no such thing as if you mate, you're a species. There is only, are you the same gene pool? And does your gene pool have enough crossbreeding in it that you actually end up with a unified gene pool, even if you don't look the same or ever mate? Yes?
Just dogs, that's how we have miniature versions of big dogs, like miniature huskies.
Yes, the greatest insult in the history of dogs has to be the teacup Doberman. Why is it an insult?
No, like, what?
Why do they do that?
Exactly. So in my generation, if you were going to be scared of a dog because we'd gotten past the whole German Shepherd terror thing, it was the Doberman. That was the ultimate. No, pit bulls are brand new. It was the ultimate fear. Every movie had a couple of Dobermans, and then one day somebody did this. Can you imagine? Oh my God! It's a teacup Doberman. But see, you got it. That was so good. What you have is you have a gene pool that is shared among all members of the species. And that's why the environment thing was so important. The environment is humans loving their dogs so much, they want all of these breeds, and they'll take them however they get them. Yeah. Okay. That's how evolution begins to work. Because what if I was able to only breed together the biggest Great Danes ever? If I could fly around the world getting only the puppies from the biggest Great Danes and mating them together, could I get to the size of an actual horse?
Who knows? I don't know.
You don't know, because the only limits are physics, or if you will, the physics of physiology. Let me explain. There will never be gigantic cockroaches. Why? Because an exoskeleton, there are no giant exoskeleton creatures. Why? Because the exoskeleton cannot handle gravity. So the more mass you have, the more the exoskeleton legs cannot handle the force of gravity. It doesn't work. Yes?
It's not just gravity, it's, we don't know, you still need for oxygen density, but in the, I forget what Shira it was, they were giant arthropods.
Giant what?
They were giant arthropods in the past.
Okay.
Like 6 foot millipedes, 3 foot grasshoppers, 3 foot scorpions. Those were around, they were on the planet.
Send me a link. That's a great thing to add to my lecture and get right next time. Thank you. That's much appreciated.
Oh,
I'd
my
always been
goodness,
taught that it
yeah.
was a gravity problem. I didn't know it was another kind of problem. Nice. I love it. I'm learning stuff. Yeah.
I hope there's no 6-foot cockroaches.
We all hope so. Okay. So, okay, a couple of things that I do know I can get right.
The board is not one of them.
Mute, yes, down. Okay, so first, adaptations never benefit groups. This is going to be a tough one. Everyone always messes this up. So, I have a couple of examples. So, cannibalism. Now, what is cannibalism? Cannibalism is the eating of members of your own species. It's not being a meat eater. That's just any kind of eating of the members of your own species. So, we've actually seen cannibalism emerge among a number of species. Now, here's what's interesting. Cannibalism emerges oftentimes in population crashes, right? Where the amount of available resources for that species to survive is disappearing rapidly. And think about how cannibalism is great for the cannibals. That is, they suddenly have a brand new source of resources, of food. The trouble is, if the population is crashing, the cannibals are actually eating the species into? Right. So cannibalism and its evolution is, I don't know about among humans. I have nothing about humans, but among many species, in fact, is a nice proof of how it is that adaptations only can benefit individuals. My other favorite one is brains. So the history of gigantic brain growth is most found among the order Primates, among primates. We have the largest brain to body size ratio of any set of species that we, as far as we know, has ever existed. We are the big ass brain height of the primate lineage. In 1963, Cuban Missile Crisis. In 1963, Kennedy and Khrushchev got themselves into a snit fit over nuclear weapons. And this led to the great Cuban Missile Crisis, where for a moment everybody believed that humans were going to blow themselves up. After the Cold War was over, the story was, well, no, that wasn't really going to happen. Humans couldn't be that stupid. Or is it that smart? After all, it takes some brains to invent nuclear weapons, right? Okay, so, but they interviewed the Soviet general who was in the room, the equivalent of the generals in the room with the Kennedys. And the Soviet general said, who was in charge of pushing the button, said, we had no fucking clue what was going on. We were ready to push the button. That means both sides were ready to push the button, not just our side. So now, could it have been, let me ask you the question. Could have the reason that why we destroyed the earth is because we had such big brains. Because it takes big brains to invent science, industrialism, factories, nuclear weapons. This would have meant that brains have been good for all the individuals who passed on their DNA because they had them, but it would have wiped out the species and maybe most of planet Earth too. Yes, it could have. This is a nice thought experiment. It's a thought experiment. It's a weaker one than some of our past ones, but it gives you a sense of the possibility that any adaptation that is good for the individual could actually, in fact, be bad for the species. Yes?
That makes so much sense.
It does. But here's where people get confused. Evolution doesn't evolve individuals. Evolution only evolves population averages. So remember the beaks? You will never evolve anything. However, in the future, the population average may change. So for example, remember the going to living in caves story? You go to live in caves. No individual got shorter. Instead, over time, short people were more likely to reproduce, right? So evolution changes populations, but selects individuals. And that's where I think students get confused. Next, don't forget, natural selection usually acts to prevent change. So stabilizing selection is more common. Next, natural selection can build eyes. Next, evolution does not mean greater complexity. There you are. The ultimate predator, the ultimate winner of everything. Natural selection can mean relatively swift change. That's a little bit tougher. That's not always the case, but it can happen. Dogs are very rapid, but that's artificial selection. So it's very hard to say. Yeah?
Necessarily call it evolution, but I know there is a have a mutation that gives them a little bit of immunity to rabies, it's rapidly becoming more of a thing because those people are spreading their genes, giving other people mutations that make them.
We see this, this is evolution. We see this all the time. So here's a great question. Are humans evolving? Yeah, go ahead, yes.
Sorry, could you go back to the last slide real quick?
Sure. Remember, you've got the PowerPoint, so you don't need to write down the slides. That's why I go through them quickly. Okay. This is a really important, are humans still evolving?
Yeah.
Yes, we are evolving. I say all the time. We're actually evolving to get worse vision. Have I told you about that? Okay, so here's the thing. Around 500 years ago, humans began to invent corrective elements for eyes. Okay, that's the first thing. Next, does visual acuity problems, issues, run in family lines? Yes, we know that. Nearsightedness, very kinds of farsight, these are all run in family lines. 10,000 years ago, if you're extremely nearsighted, would you have survived? No, not at all. So, we can demonstrably prove right away, and this is, by the way, in the record, so I'm not just inventing this right now, we know this is true, humans are getting worse vision. But it doesn't matter. You can get LASIK, you can have contacts. That makes it, isn't that fascinating? We are actually always evolving. So yes, that's a very good point. Okay. Then comes, so we've done 2 problems Darwin faced. One, altruism. We're running on that chapter 7. That's one of my favorite topics.
What's altruism?
Being nice to your competitor. So helping a competitor pass on their DNA when you don't pass on yours. The social insects, we talked about that. The other problem, the eye. And then here was the one that killed it. Blending inheritance. Okay, let me go over this real quick because this is a really interesting problem. Whenever a professor says interesting, you should fall asleep immediately. It should be like one of those things like hypnosis. Watch the clock swing back and forth. This is really interesting. Yet do all professors say, this is really interesting? What the fuck is wrong with us? Yes, go ahead.
So due to advancements in like medicine, are we actually just getting weaker as humans?
Immune systems. So here's a really interesting, now I don't know that. So this is a thought experiment. The eye thing we know now, but this one, so there is a massive overuse of antibiotics, especially in young children. By the way, if you are a mother who shows up with a screaming 2-year-old who has been screaming for the past several days with a really bad ear infection, should you give them antibiotics? No. Will you give them the antibiotics? Oh yeah. Get in the way of that one if you can. So yes, there is some evidence, and again, this is out of my field of knowledge altogether, that in fact, you can produce weakened immune systems, and that may be a heritable trait, but I don't know if there's any trend in that at all. So it's a great question. Again, beyond my scope really entirely. And I have to be careful about getting out of my scope because see, I did the exoskeleton thing wrong from what I'd read a long time ago, and it wasn't right. Okay, so blending inheritance. Let me kill this right here. All right, so let's go back to my graph, but instead of dogs, we're going to do humans, I kind of noted. All right, here we go. Okay, so we have a bell curve, right? And this is height, so this is short and tall. Here's your average. It turns out the average on Earth for all humans, male and female and otherwise, is somewhere probably around maybe 5'5". Because no one knows, because no one's actually done the Earth census of all populations. So this is kind of a guesstimate across a number of population estimates. The tallest person on Earth, though, ever was 8 feet, 11 and 1/2 inches tall.
That's gonna give somebody health problems.
Oh yeah. Now, I just want to point out real quick, just think about this. Can you imagine if you were friggin' 8 feet, 11 and 1/2 inches tall, and you could not say, I'm 9 feet tall? And people say, no, you're not 9 feet. Yes, I fucking am. Here, get the ruler again. Because what the fuck is the point of being that tall if you can't say, I'm 9 feet goddamn tall? Anyway, so that's a tragedy itself. But okay, the next tragedy is 8 foot 11 and 1/2 inch dude looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for love in too many faces, another heart. Look. Not only can I not sing, you probably see me dance. Okay, so who's he likely to find love and happiness with?
A tall person? A really tall person?
We hope it's a tall person. But how many 8-foot tall females, unless you can fly around the earth, are you going to find?
Not many.
How many 7-foot, thank you for the not many there. How many 7-foot tall females can you find unless you can fly around the earth? Needle in a haystack, with the haystack being about this big, not many needles. So let's just say he mates with a 6-foot 6-inch, because that's friggin' tall, female. That's just crazy to be that tall. So now, first off, there's 2 factors. First off, most times, and this is the problem, it's called blending inheritance. Most times, offspring resemble an average of the 2 for most traits that are multiple genes. Height is multiple genes, over 400. So all of their kids are going to be halfway in between, right? No, it's actually worse, because who knows their statistics? Regression to the mean. Regression to the mean means if you're out here on the extreme, the likely outcome of a combination of extremes is going to push toward the mean where most of the data points are. So in fact, they're going to be far closer to her. So they're going to have a bunch of 7-foot tall kids. They are going to be taller than average, most likely. Okay? But that means then, in the next generation, tallest person on Earth is now 8 feet 9 inches tall. Looking for love in all the wrong places. Same problem. Next generation, 8 foot 6 inches tall. Next generation, 8 feet 2. What's happening to our bell curve? What's happening to our variation? Disappearing. There it is. Okay. I think it's actually 26 inches tall as the shortest.
But can you say about the variation and the mean change?
We'll get there. We'll get there. So shortest person ever, 26 inches tall. Same problem. You are not going to find in your local state anybody to mate with who is shorter than, say, 3 feet tall, which is 36 inches tall. So once again, regression to the mean. That just means then that if you're on the extreme edges of IQ, complex trait, height, complex trait, if I combine you with another person on the extreme, most of your offspring are going to tend to be closer to the mean. In fact, they're likely to be way closer, but I'm being generous. So all the kids are going to be close to maybe 34 inches tall, so they die. Next generation, shortest person is 31 inches tall. They have kids. Next generation, 36 inches tall. They have kids and die. Next generation, 40 inches tall. What's happening to all of my total variation of the population? It's utterly disappearing. And eventually you're going to end up with a bell curve, according to both regression to the mean and averaging, that looks like this. This is the blending inheritance problem. This is the one that killed Darwin. Because you see, he published before he wanted to. Okay? Now, let's think about this. And I'm going to give you a story, and you're going to be a genius. You get to be a genius for 10 minutes.
Wow.
Okay, how? Well, you'll see.
Wow.
Okay. I have decided to paint my house. You ready? Now, I want to remind you, and this I hope will be the most fun thing we do this week. Biology is blood, shit, sex, and death. And you have to dumb yourself down as much as you can to make sense of this. And you can become Mendel. And Mendel found genes, discovered genes. I'm going to get you to discover genes on your own. You ready? Here we go. I'm going to paint my house.
That's in the classroom.
My house, I want to be breast cancer awareness pink. Let's say my mother, she had serious breast cancer. In honor of her, in honor of supporting breast cancer awareness, I have decided to paint my house breast cancer awareness pink. You realize there is no such thing in any color chart in any Home Depot ever, right? Here's the color I don't want it to be. You ready? Pepto-Bismol pink. That's a nasty color, isn't it?
I like it.
Great. So I go to Home Depot and I get myself 2 different color batches. You ready? Flat exterior white. And, ready? Candy apple, fire engine, hot lips, red. It's very specific. Candy apple, fire engine, hot lips, red. And then I've got my 20 gallons of that, my 20 gallons of base exterior blah blah, and I pour them together into a big paint vat, stir them up, and I've got perfect pink. So my neighbors are watching, going, and I start painting my house. Roll. And I go to bed that night, and I wake up the next morning because the paint will now more or less dry, and I go outside, and the neighbors are all standing out there. Shit.
It's a different color.
It's Pepto-Bismol pink. And the neighborhood is like not happy. Now, I still have 20 gallons of Pepto-Bismol pink in a vat. And I want to start over again because apparently I mixed it wrong. Now, I've got this. Okay, now there's a bunch of different terms for this. So there's suspensions, there's mixtures, but let's just be clear. Is there any way for me to get my, that's why I use these terms, candy apple, fire engine, hot lips red back out into cans and my white out into cans? Can't be done. Sometimes students are trying to be smart, again, biology is dumb, and go, well, you can bit by bit. No, it's now a mixture. It's not coming apart back into its original paint. Okay. So, what do? Because that's the blending inheritance problem. From the viewpoint, from the viewpoint of Darwin, what Darwin saw was he saw one individual and another individual go mush. And out came halfway in between. He had no idea about genes. So all he saw was what I just told you. He saw paint, mom, dad, mixed together, offspring. So Mendel saw something else. So tell me how I get my candy apple, fire engine, hot lips red back out. And again, you're gonna solve it again in one jump. Okay, it's okay. Go for it.
Well, you just mix together the pink a lot.
See, but you'll never get back there. That's why I picked that. You'll never get back to that precise color no matter how hard you try. So that's what I want to do. It'll be close. Remember, so the difference between breast cancer when it's pink and the other kind is just a little bit. So it's gotta be, you gotta be very precise now. So how, and so luckily you didn't solve it this time. Oh,
You got a professional?
No, because you can't find any professionals at Home Depot anymore. Again, biology, blood, shit, sex, and death. Go for it.
I'm just spitballing, but I'm thinking about the environment and maybe you like split the batches for each one of the sun or something.
I love it. You'll never make it back to that candy apple, fire engine, hot lips red. And what you've done is you guys have already overthought the biology entirely. And this is what's so friggin' cool. You're all too smart. You have to dumb yourself down. Take me all the way back to the story. Go ahead.
You just get another red paint.
Okay, so you gotta remember, I am as dumb as a rock. I am biology. And I am as dumb as a rock. So that's pretty good. I can do it. You have to take me back to the store. Go ahead. I'm in the store. Now what do I do?
Go back to the store and find another candy apple, fire, red lip, hot, red.
Close enough. But how do I do that? You want to keep going. You keep going. Okay, so you're halfway there. Yeah.
I was gonna say just leave it as it is.
Leave it as it is. Fuck you, neighbors. It's breast cancer awareness pink. I don't care what you say. The iconoclast. One of my gymnasts the other day said, "Life is sad. Lock in." We've been joking for days. That's right. Yes. Tough it out. Yes. She got me into the store. You gotta take me to the store. You're doing Mendel. You're gonna be a genius from it. I swear to God, you're gonna do it. So this is really kind of fun. Yeah. Well, I want to start over again with my candy apple fire and hot red because I figure I just put too much white in. So I figure instead of going 10 parts of each, I'll go 10 parts 1, 9 parts 1. You see, you can start to subtly adjust. But I have to start over again. So I'm starting over. Yeah. Well, yeah, but I get my paint back. How do I get my original? How do I get my original paint back? I tell you, you guys refuse to be dumb. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you're not being dumb, but you gotta be dumb. Yes.
You have a.
Hang on.
Go to the paint section.
Okay, I'm in the paint section. And what am I looking at?
The one who did the painting with dyes.
You are so close. Okay, okay, we jumped a little bit ahead. I go look at the paint swatches. Because remember, how did I find the candy apple fire and hot in the first place? I went to the part where they had the paint swatches, and I went to the paint swatches going, ooh, I want that one. It's called Candy Apple Fire Orange and Hot Lips Red. So I get that swatch again, or so you jumped, that's good. Now what do I do with my little swatch? I know this is stupid. You're about to be Mendel for just a few minutes. That's a big deal. What do I do?
You get something a little darker.
No, I want my original, but how do I get it?
Measure of colors.
I already have the paint swatch. What do I do? Yeah, I've got the one. It says candy up. I've got it. I'm holding it in my hand.
Blended one.
Don't be dumb. Help me get to the counter, you people. Yes.
You go to someone and you ask, where can I get this color?
Okay, so I bring my swatch to the counter to the professional dude. They don't exist at Home Depot anymore. And I say to him, her, they, I would please like.
The same color?
And what do they do?
Whoa.
Whoa. Why is that? What does the person do? They do it right in front of you. This is how I learned this. Okay, I'll tell you a quick story because I don't want to give it away. So this is what's really interesting. It's hard to tell the story about it because you guys are really close. Okay, so after World War II, with the building of suburbia, hang on. After World War II, with the building of suburbia, people began to be interested in painting their houses. They wanted, because most people before World War II were living in urban regions and in apartment buildings. You could control the inside of your house, but you couldn't control the outside. So people began painting the exterior of their houses. And in those days, you have a changeover from war manufacturing to peace manufacturing. And so all of these companies that were making Jeeps and electronic radio equipment and paint, they all switched over to making electric guitars and amplifiers and radios for humans and televisions and cars and paint. And you have these giant factories outputting 9 colors of paint. Whose grandparents have paint in their garage for their house color? It's starting to disappear. You've got, yeah. So in my generation, all people who owned houses had cans of paint for their exterior in their garage because there was no way to ever get the same paint color again because factories would manufacture millions of gallons of a paint, but they could never get that same mixture again because the original color was hand mixed. So if you wanted a specialized color to your house, you would go to a specialty paint store and they would mix a color, and that would be the only time you could ever get that color. There's Darwin. You take 2 colors of paint, mush them together, make 100 batches of it, and that's that person's paint color. Now, I can get any paint, any color, anywhere in the world. All I need to do is go to the counter with my swatch, and the person does what? It happens right in front of you. It's amazing. Yes?
They mix both colors together.
Close. You jumped. Too far. What do they do? Come on, you get to be friggin' Mendel. It's worth it. You get to be a genius for 30 seconds.
They look at the 2 separate colors and
nope.
They scan it or something.
Oh, so close. I'm holding my fingers prepared for you.
They asked you what two colors.
Look it up.
Define the white need for.
They start. Okay, so who's seen this? They take a can of paint, put it under the counter. Who's seen it done? Okay, what did they do?
Put in the name of the color.
I don't want to give it away.
They open it up.
I know all of you know this.
I've never been to Home Depot.
Have you ever messed with paint in your life? Have you ever known anybody who's done paint? You all know this. You do it every day on your computers, I swear to God. You don't look it up. No, it's, okay. It's on the paint swatch, right next to the name. What? They type in a code.
I do that every day.
Every time you log in to your email, you have to type in a code. Okay, so you just solved the whole problem. There is no such thing as paint. It doesn't exist. Any color. It's out there in the imagination. What dictates color now? Computer codes. DNA. Do you see it now? I told you. No, but for a moment, think how amazing this is. After World War II until the 1980s, you could never get specialized colors in large batches. You could not go to Peru or to Russia or to France or to California and simply say, hey, I want this particular code. Now there is a software base in which there are contained codes. Those codes code for what? Dyes. That's why they they type in, like I just did, messed up my screen, they put a can of base coat color underneath the counter and it injects dyes at a microscopic, at a micromilliliter level to precisely produce the exact same color over and over again. So here's the thing that Darwin never knew. When you mix two individuals, you don't mix the paint. Excuse me. No, I did it wrong. You don't mix the codes, you mix the paint. But if you want to start over again, all you need is the code. And in inheritance, does DNA ever mix? No. It is maintained as a discrete and separate code. Isn't that fascinating? I know you're annoyed as shit, but before being annoyed from it, think about how interesting that is.
It's like when you use like really small dots to make a big picture, and a big picture can look different per picture, but the dots
Let's do it.
remain the same numbers.
So let's do it. So here's what makes this so interesting. Oh, I can do it over here. So let's just make let's make height 1G. So over 400. Let's make it 1G.
So there's codes.
So here we go. If I have 1 gene, I've got 2 alleles, right? Okay, there's always at least 2 alleles for a gene, 2 different versions. So if I have a really tall dog, my genes are plus for height, right? If I have a really short dog, the genes are what? Minus for height. Okay, so they mate together, producing an offspring that is medium. That's what Darwin saw. That's the paint. But what is the code they contain? There is no medium. They cannot pass on medium. Do you see it now? And it just gets more interesting. As you add more genes, it still has the same effect. That's still a tall and a short dog, right? Right. So what do they pass on now? Well, they still produce something like a medium dog, but it's like plus, minus. You see? No mediumness. And no matter how many genes you add, you just keep adding up how many pluses and minuses. And although you get an average, what you end up with in the DNA never mixes. It's a discrete code, just like the paint codes. You nailed it. What's that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Some slow personal example. Both my grandparents are less than 5'5". All their kids were above 6 feet, at least on the male side.
Let me show you what happened.
Oh, wait.
Here's your grandparents. And instead, so it's either one goes. So their offspring got plus, 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 minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus. See what happened? They picked up the hidden plus alleles. They could have made it even shorter. And what happened was you get every once in a while, you get this kind of averaging, right? It's the streak problem. You know what the streak problem is, right? If you have a streak of shots where you're a basketball player and you start hitting of a lucky streak, that can go on for a very, very long time. Yeah, so you can get an averaging where you happen to get lucky for very long periods of time in some sense, where you get a skewed result and you don't get the average. So mathematically, it turns out that Mendel figured out something really interesting. No two individuals ever mix because their DNA never mixes, and they don't pass on height, they pass on DNA. That's what's so different about Mendel's version of the world.
So wait, DNA never mixes it. What does it do then? It adds.
I just showed you. It remains separate inside each of your cells. Half of your DNA is from your mother, half your DNA is from your father. Now, what they build looks like me mixing paint. For those who are biological majors, it's a decent metaphor, right? The codes produce things that get mixed, right? But that doesn't mean the code itself mixes. And that's what makes biology, I think, so fascinating. Okay, so that means we're now into Mendel. Right, down we go with the screen. Okay. So here's the thing. Darwin had no mechanics of inheritance. He had nothing. He had no ideas. Now, Mendel is from a sort of lower middle class or middle class family. And as a child, he was seen as an extraordinarily bright individual, just brilliant, especially at science. And he's got one problem. We don't know much because it wasn't really recorded how this worked in those days. We didn't keep track of people who had struggles with cognitive testing situations. But every time he got near an exam, he got ill. And I mean ill to the point he had to go home. So he gets to university and he's doing really well. He's brilliant, but he cannot take exams. Now, in those days, there was only really 3 paths in professional life. You could become a member of the civil service, but to be a member of the civil service, if you're from China, you know this very well, you have to take the civil service exams. They're horrible, and they were in those days too. You couldn't take exams. You could go into the high priesthood, but to go into priesthood, you go to seminary school where you take exams. You can go into the military as an officer. If you go into the military as an officer, you go into military officer school and you take a lot of friggin' exams, literally. If you want to become a doctor, a scientist, any kind, you gotta take exams. So what did he do? Nothing. He became a monk. He becomes an obscure monk, just working in a monastery in what is now Germany-ish. And it's not a big monastery. He deals with a lot of people who are rural people. And what are they always thinking about? If you're a rural person or a farm, what are you always working with? Nature, animals, and plants. And what are you always trying to do with your animals and plants? Make them stronger, make them yield more, make them more able to resist this disease, whatever it might be. And remember, I think I said this on Monday, Tuesday, it's Thursday, good God, that Darwin's work was like the Harry Potter of its time. Everybody read Darwin because he came out and it was like somebody dropped a nuclear weapon. I mean, it was insane how many people started arguing about Darwin, fighting about natural selection. His idea that somehow we were derived from apes was one of the biggest nightmares of popular craziness for decades. So Mendel reads Darwin and realizes that all the critiques of Darwin are correct. So he goes out, he thinks, I have an answer for this, and he starts breeding peas. Now, Mendel does something really interesting. At the time, biology didn't have probability. Well, if you think about it, populations are probabilistic elements, right? They are groups of individuals. You can't do modern biology without probability. But at the time, his was based on a probabilistic study of thousands of hybridizations of crosses. And so, first off, he publishes paper and sends it out. And who is he? Is he from a major science institution? Is he a big mucky-muck scientist? Has anybody ever heard his name? Does anybody even know who this idiot is? No. And you know what happens when you try to do something and no one knows who you are? It's a very specialized thing. If no one knows who you are, you might as well forget it, right? Strike number one. Strike number two, they read his paper and go, what is this bullshit? Why? Because it was written in a more modern biology way, and he basically invented some elements, if you will, of how we think about probability and populations. So literally, his paper is tossed. So he gives up. And he dies. He becomes the head abbot and just dies. How friggin' weird is that? Like, it's so bad that nobody believes he did it, even when his work is rediscovered. So 3 biologists in the early 20th century rediscover his work. One of them was such a complete, utter asshole that nobody could stand him. Brilliant guy. And one of his acquaintances handed him a copy of Mendel's paper. The guy refused to believe it. Even in the last few years, Mendel has once again been accused of actually falsifying his results. So people have gone back and redone his studies, convinced that there's no way he could have done what he said he did. Here's the greatest insult of all. In those days, can I borrow this book real quick here? It's okay? It's okay? Yeah. So, you know how books have that rough kind of edge? Yeah. That's because, thank you so much, I appreciate that. Books are actually cut out of gigantic pieces of paper that have multiple, I think 16 pages on it, am I correct if you know you're publishing? And they're folded and folded and folded down to the book size. And then a machine comes along and cuts open the folds so you can open the book. In those days, there was no page cutters. So you had to cut your own pages when you opened a book. That's why they had paper cutters.
That seems to sound like that.
Wait, there's an uncut version of Mendel's paper in Darwin's library. Mendel sent the paper, Darwin never read it. So, literally, in the 1860s, while Darwin was still alive, Mendel actually discovers genes. They were rediscovered 40 years later. Okay, so here we go. How much time do I have? Okay, chapter 2. Here, I'll do it closer. Now, the first thing I do, don't write it down. Then the second thing I do, then you'll write that down. Many of you already know Mendel. I want to take you through Mendel a little bit differently. So I want to take you through what he saw. So he's thinking about Darwin. And he's thinking about Darwin's blending inheritance problem. That's the whole thing he wants to deal with. So he starts with peas, okay? And let's just start with one of the first ones. He's got yellow peas and green peas. Okay? Those are the 2 colors. And he notices, here we go, you ready? Again, don't write this down. I'm going to take you through what he saw before he thought. So he's got fields of yellow peas, and separately, he's got a field of green peas. Okay? Now, here's what he does. He crossbreeds all the members of his yellow field, time after time, and they're all yellow. So he says these are true breeders for yellow. Whatever makes up color, there's only yellow there. Same thing with the green. So he said these are also true breeders for green. All right? So he thinks he's got a base state where he separated whatever makes yellow and green entirely and proved it, right? Then he's called the F-Zero generation. Then he takes yellow and green and breeds them together. So plant here, plant here. Plant here, plant here. Plant here, plant here, over and over again. And what does he get every single time?
Alternate color?
Yellow. Green disappears. Now, people have been doing that for thousands of years and nobody cares. But Mendel was a good mathematician and a very good scientist, and he took it one step further. He got a bunch of plants, because he did this hundreds of times, over and over and over. Well, here's where it gets weird. So then he bred these plants together, and he got...
Either or?
Nope.
Green.
He got the green back out. Now listen, it wasn't vomit yellow green, like green had been strained through yellow, looked like something you vomited up after a long night out of partying. It was the perfect emerald Oz City green of the original generation. There is no blending inheritance. There can't be, because no blending occurred. It didn't come out greenish or grello or yeen. And so, but think about that. So at this moment then, he does something ridiculously astounding. I don't get it. I admire genius. You know, Einstein's sitting around a fucking patent office in Switzerland going, okay, 2 trains, one going this way, one going that way, people on the train, people on a platform, relativity. He's like, what the? So then Mendel says, aha, there's 2 levels of reality. Nobody has seen this. So who was it that did atoms? Heraclitus? Heraclitus? Do you know? I think that was the one who first started thinking about atoms. So atoms, the Greeks had thought about atoms, and people have been thinking about, well, what's the constituent parts of reality? Oh, they're little balls. So maybe this is what influenced Mendel. I have no idea. But he said, what I see, he said, not yet, he said, is phenotype. That's what I see. But there's a hidden level of reality. It's tiny. Nobody can see it. It's hidden inside the plant. It's called genes, whatever his word for it was. And they're little particles. And there are 2 of them. Okay, do you know your chromosomes? Right? What the fuck? I don't get it. So he said, now write this down. So he said, actually, don't bother looking at the color. Look at the hidden invisible particles. Oh my God, I hate this. I mean, I love it. I mean, I hate it. I mean, I love it. The yellow plants are made up of 2 particles. Now, because I spent all my time bouncing back and forth, crossbreeding all the members of this group, I know all the particles are Y. Okay, sure. And then the green tree, the green field, same thing. I've been crossbreeding forever, so I know all the particles, all the plants are green. Those 2 particles. GG. Sure, why not? And then the thing is, when plants reproduce, they each give 1 particle. Sure, why not? By the way, when chromosomes are popped into sperm cells, how do you decide what goes into the sperm cell? How do you decide what goes to the sperm cell?
Meiosis?
Well, what is that? You just take half the information, right? You just literally say, I'll take this half of the chromosome and put it in here. He was right. How did he get it right? So he said, this plant gives 1 particle, this plant gives 1 particle. Huh?
It'd be YG.
Yeah. It says YG. Okay, you ready? Here's this next moment of genius, just for the fuck of it. Okay, so how come all the plants are yellow? Because yellow is dominant. What the? Was he right? Yeah, we've got lots of simple dominance traits today. It's never changed. Fuck me. Okay, so 100% yellow. Why not? It's like watching a comedy routine. It's insane. or some juggler juggling 70 balls. Okay, so then what happens? Well, okay, he said, I take these two, you'll love this, I take these two plants from this field, and I just figure out how the particles can be descended, can be mixed. So this is dad, this is mom, so dad gives a Y, mom gives a Y. That's dad gives a Y, mom gives a Y. Or dad could give a Y and mom could give a G. So that's dad gives a Y, mom gives a G. Or dad could give a G and mom could give a Y, okay, that's YG. Or dad could give a G and mom could give a G, that's GG. So here we go. Dad gives Y, mom gives Y. Dad gives Y, mom gives G. Dad gives G, mom gives Y. Dad gives G, mom gives G. And then you end up with 75% of the plants are yellow. 25% of the plants are green. It's insane. This is modern biology in its beginning. It's why every biology class in high school, college, even junior high, teaches Mendel. They still do. Poor bastard. That no one thinks he did it. He died thinking that he was like an idiot or was never going to figure out anything, never be understood. And so now, 170 years later, 160 years later, everybody does Mendel. Isn't that bizarre? Can you imagine?
It's like,
Oh, Van Gogh?
yeah, like he
Van
died
Gogh or Van
thinking
Gogh,
he
no matter
was
which one you want.
He died thinking his thought wasn't really anything because back then it didn't
Yeah.
really sell so much, and now it's just amazing.
Yeah, now it sells for $100 million. Okay, so let's do the next one. So he also discovered that some plants and seed pods are smooth and some are wrinkled. Once again, now we're doing the genotype version. He says, you know what? What it looks like, that's not what's important. Because again, you don't take two individuals and mush them together. You don't take paint and mix it and learn anything. He said, what you need to do is figure out the code. Because guess what? DNA is it's a code sequence the same as any kind of software package that has a code sequence. It's the same thing as an alphabet. It's just information wrapped up in molecules. Bizarre. How he saw this, I have no idea. So he says, well, I've got my true breeding field of smooth plants. They're all smooth. I keep crossbreeding them. I only get smooth plants. I got my true breeding field of wrinkled. I keep crossbreeding them. I only get wrinkled plants. He said, that's my original condition, my F0 generation. He said, I then bred members of the two fields together to get an offspring generation of that, the F1. He said, they're all SW. Okay, whatever, great. And they're all smooth. Why? Well, because smooth is dominant. Oh, lovely. This is like that gravity thing I discussed yesterday. The law of gravity is describing something that nobody really understands, but it just happens. Gotta love it. F2, he said, okay, so we get this. SW, SW. Because smooth is dominant, anytime you see an S, the plant is going to be smooth. Whereas if you only see W's, then it will be wrinkled. So you get 75% smooth plants, that's the phenotype, and 25% wrinkled plants, that's the phenotype also.
And what's pheno mean?
Pheno means observed. So phenotype is observed, genotype is the genes, the actual alleles themselves. So let's go through all of that exactly. So first off, genes are bits of data that code for traits, or parts of traits. Genes are bits of data that code for traits, or part of traits. So for example, you may have blue eyes, you have brown eyes. You may have hitchhiker's thumb or not. You may have attached earlobes or not. You may have a widow's peak or not. You may have freckles or not. These are all Mendelian traits where a single gene codes for the presence of dominant freckles or non-freckled, non-dominant recessive. Next, alleles are different versions of the genes. Freckles, no freckles. Widow's peak, flat lie, hitchhiker's thumb, no hitchhiker's thumb, attached earlobes, unattached earlobes, all these kinds of things. They're the different versions of the trait. Those are the alleles. Phenotype is what does the thing look like when you see it, when you observe it. Genotype, what particles does it have? Okay? And then we go a little further and we start talking about chromosomes, right? Because one of the things that makes Mendel so extraordinary is how you become you. And let's do that now. So, what is the original form of cell copying called long before sex ever existed?
Mitosis?
Yeah, mitosis. So the thing is single-celled organisms, they copy themselves through mitosis, so mitotic copying. How does that work? So I'm going to build a creature with 3 pairs of genes. That makes life easy. Here's 1, 2, 3. When that organism creates daughter cells, this is mitosis, M-I-T-O-S-I-S, you end up with the same exact thing. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, messed that up. 1, 2, 3. So you end up with daughter cells that have the same exact amount of information in their cells that the original mother cell has. Now, the way to think about this is, because students hate mitosis and meiosis, mitosis happens in your toes. Mitosis happens in your toesies. Remember that, because that way you'll never flip them in your head again. Mitosis happens in your toes. So let's say you're running on the field like one of my gymnasts might do, and you kick something hard and break your toe. Right? Okay, so you've just broken one of your phalanges. Okay, so in the bone itself, you now have a crack. Okay, you very rarely dislocate the bone too. Usually just create a crack. Now what's going to happen in that crack is there going to be bone cells growing across that gap. Okay? And when those bone cells grow, those are brand new cells, correct? Those cells were going to have all 23 pairs of your chromosomes, correct? All 46 chromosomes, is that right? They would have the same information. Right. Mitosis happens in your toes. Okay. Now, then sex evolves. Sex is friggin' weird. I mean, it's weird. So here's the thing. By the way, anybody know the film Rosemary's Baby? Oh, yeah. Okay, so do you realize that inside a female, typically, inside a female, for 9 months, you grow half of alien. Do you understand? You are going to grow half of someone else's DNA. Oh, that's nasty. That's crazy. Yes?
Is this symbiosis?
We don't call it symbiosis because we're both the same species. But it is a kind of weird symbiosis. Okay, so this means we're now in meiosis. Sex gets invented, and you have to get rid of, well, let's take a look at this. So here is dad. Here is mom. Okay? So again, my creature's going to have 3 pairs of chromosomes. I don't got time for 23. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Here's mom. 1, 2, 3. Right? Now, I'm going to produce an offspring with how many pairs of chromosomes? 3. So I've got to get rid of how much information?
3.
Half. Somehow. Now, we could do it all kinds of different ways, but because we've got this rule that it takes 2 particles to make a gene, and genes are just bits on chromosomes. Okay, remember I showed you the yellow chromosome? So here's the chromosome with yellow on it. There's a place where P color is, and on that P color, on both pairs of chromosomes, is a particle, and those 2 particles work together. So you've already got this paired up system, make sense? And the chromosomes are simply pairs of enormous numbers of genes. We have 23 pairs of chromosomes, we have 20-some thousand genes. So you can think of a chromosome as being a number of genes on this molecule. Hang on. Okay? So now, I've got to get rid of half, and the best way to get rid of half, this would be sperm, is to simply split the pairs. 1, 2, 3. There's another sperm. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Same thing with mom. Eggs. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You see what I've done? I've done something really bizarre. Do you guys know much about your mitosis? In meiosis, it turns out that meiosis is just mitosis extended one more time. It's kind of weird. Close enough for the moment. It's mitosis extended to another split without doubling. Does that make sense? So in mitosis, you double and split. You guys know this? So you double the number of chromosomes, you split in half on the poles, right? In meiosis, you do mitosis, and then you do an additional split. All right, so what happens is now, how do I create a baby out of this? Or an offspring? Watch this. All I have to do, can you all see from the back? I take 1 and 1. There's 1. I take the 1 from the sperm. I take the other half from the egg. There's chromosome pair number 1. From number 2, I take the half of the pair from the sperm, half of the pair from number 2 from the egg, and they match up. Number 3, I take the half from the sperm, the half from the egg, and they match up. And I end up with a paired set of chromosomes and an offspring with the exact right amount of DNA. So meiosis turns to mitosis. Then, after your parents did the nasty, sorry, time, doing okay. You were a single zygote, right? You're a single cell. So then what happens? You do mitosis. How many cells are you right now? 10 billions, God, in your brain alone. So enormous numbers of billions, right? Each one of those cells, unless there's been errors, literally has every single bit of this information inside of it. So meiosis happens in germ cells, right? Meiosis happens in sperm and eggs. But mitosis happens in your toes, body cells. So mitosis is what body cells do. Meiosis is what is produced when you produce sperm and eggs. And this is all mental. This is the kind of the base of modern biology, right? Questions on that?
Is there a step forward to get there?
Well, let's do it right now. Okay, so I have decided, you guys tell me, what do you think is more common in life? Do you think assholes are more common? Is that the dominant trait? And nice people's are recessive? Or is it the other way around? Nice people are more common and assholes are recessive? Assholes more common? Nice people? Wow, you're an optimist. Okay, let's do it that way. Here we go. There's 2 alleles, nice and asshole.
I think they're here.
I'm going with you.
It depends on the day.
Let's do it. Any given day. Any given day. Okay, but we have to establish dominance. Okay? So now, get paper out. Here we go. Don't look at what they are. Look at what the particles are. So I've bred myself a whole bunch of really nice people. I've crossbred them. They're always nice, so I know I've got true breeding nice people. I've got a bunch of assholes I've bred together in laboratories, underground, concrete. Don't let them out.
No one of you turned into us.
And yeah, see? No socialization. This is all genes. And then, okay, in my F1 generation, I get a heterozygote. These are called homozygotes. Zygote, cell, single cell. Homo, same condition both. Hetero, different condition, same cell. Okay, and this would mean then that my population is 100% nice people. I start out with a beautiful world, right? Wonderful world, beautiful people. Yeah. And then everything goes wrong. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because how many assholes does it take to screw up the universe? You were right. Here we go. So I end up with, it just takes one. So my F2 generation, I end up with 75% nice people, 25% assholes. The thing to understand about Mendel and about this kind of problem is that what you need to know is not how to do a Mendel problem, but the pattern that produces the outcome. All you have to understand is you've got dominance and recessiveness. So one allele is dominant, one allele is recessive, and I allowed him to pick, right? So it's a very simple just setup. Next, you have two particles in each parent, okay? You start with homozygotes or true breeders. This one is a homozygote, homo in the same cell, same particles. This is homozygous dominant. This is homozygous also, same particle in the cell, but it's homozygous recessive. This is a heterozygote. It has an outcome of two different particles in the same cell. In this case, nice was dominant, so in my F1 generation, all of them turned out to be nice. Okay? In the F2 generation, it gets more complicated because I'm essentially breeding together two heterozygotes. Okay? So mom gives an N, dad gives an N. Mom gives an N, dad gives an A. Mom gives an A, dad gives an N. Mom gives an A, dad gives an A. There's your four possible conditions. There's your outcome right there. And once again, it follows the rules of dominance. So whenever you see an N, which is a dominant particle, you will see that that particle is in fact a N outcome or nice outcome in the phenotype. Genotype is the letters. Phenotype is always a description because it's what you see. Yeah? Should I do another one? Okay.
Wait,
Go for it. Question, go. Yeah.
The NA, is that the homozygous?
This is a heterozygote. So hetero means mixed, right? Homo means one, right? So that's a heterozygote. I'll never test you on that, but that's the way it's talked about. Instead, I'll give you a Mendel problem. All right.
It'll make you very mad.
Here we go. Let's do another one. Let's do a real one. So freckled, which will be capital F, and non-freckled. Freckled, which I will make N, because uppercase F and lowercase f look very similar. Okay, go. By the way, in the F1 generation, it is 100% freckled. So therefore, freckled is a dominant trait. Okay, go. Let's do it. So here I'll put this out. For F0, it's capital F, capital F. Dominant is always capitalized, and lowercase n, lowercase n. Go ahead. Do you have a problem real quick?
It's gone. Oh well.
Okay, here we go.
It's fine. Blue. Okay. This one is small.
I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Okay, there you go. Everyone get that? Yeah? Everyone get that? Okay. This is 20 points on the exam. So being able to do one of these is 20 points. I know, but lots of students get it wrong. So.
No, I was just looking at the letters and thinking it's not fun without you.
About what?
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
Just the last part.
So
basically we just gotta do like one of the squares. So.
yeah, that's really easy. So That's a short answer. It's a graphing problem. So on the first exam, I'm not going to erase it, I'll leave it right there. On the first exam, you've got a math problem and a graphing problem, but it's still kind of a short answer, if you will.
Oh, nice. I thought you have red paragraphs for all of them.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so, all right, so what do we have?
Mendel's a principal? I thought he was a monk.
So, no. Mendel's principles are observed traits are determined by the actions of two particles, one from mom, one from dad, and each of the two particles is likely to be passed on by a simple coin flip. All right? Now, you don't need, I'm not going to test you. You've got it in your notes. I'm going to go right on because I want to get to the more important stuff.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
For the midterm, do we have to show all our work or just the,
So this is a hard science class, which means all work must be shown for credit. In fact, the work is worth more than the answer. Well, depends. In this case, it's probably about half and half. The work and the answer are about half and half.
And for the sentences, do they have to be full or can they be short?
Depends.
Okay.
So mostly they have to be complete thoughts. So get it? Thoughts are sometimes phrase bits, 3 words, full sentences, paragraphs, whatever. So it really depends. And again, the practice midterm will help you with that. Okay, so now Mendel literally builds the modern world. But here's the thing. Can you get evolution? Remember what I said about evolution? You need small steps. Can you get evolution with Mendel? No.
Does he have the same traits?
Yellow and green, yellow and green, yellow and green, yellow and green. Today, yellow and green, forever. How are you going to get purple? Because you see, the thing about discrete traits, they're not continuous. Discrete means separate. You've got yellow and green. There is no mush. Unlike human height, right? Human height, there's lots of variation. In Mendelian traits, the variation is too limited to get you evolution. Yes?
So there was an idea of gradual evolution, even though they look the same, like there's something small that might go on over time.
We're looking for what did the birds in the films. That makes sense? Their beaks didn't go overnight. That's called macroevolution, and nobody believes in it. Here's the great thing about that. So nobody believes that a tornado can blow through a junkyard and assemble a 747. So if you're going to get a 747, you got to start with a little guy on a bicycle, you know what I'm talking about, riding along with 3 wings, hoping you'll get off the beach and won't die. You got to start with that. Then you got to build bit by bit until you get to propellers and internal combustion engines, and then you got to figure out flaps because did you ever see the bicycle planes where they tried to get the flapping thing going, and that was death. So the idea is if you're going to get a 747, you got to build bit by bit. So you have to work through each step. So they tried the flappy wing bicycle thing, and that was death. The 3-level one, you ever see that one? So the thing is, you have to have each step has to be selected for. It's got to move on to the next step. So the problem with discrete traits, it's like going from the flappy bicycle to the 747. There's too big of a jump. So you're not going to get evolutionary trends for the most part out of single genes, because that's one of the problems, and out of traits that are discrete. You need a bell curve. In fact, pretty much all species are defined by bell curves. So there you go. So how do you get out to the Great Dane and then beyond? Yeah?
Mutation.
Yep. And that's the thing. So remember I said, when I talk about macros, so change in mutations is going to get you all the way because everything that exists came about initially from a mutation, right? But mutations can't be big. We're about to do that. You guys are always ahead. I friggin' love it. Okay, so chapter 3, lots of butterflies, because everyone hates this chapter. And we are literally going to get to your comments. So at the beginning of the 20th century, so Mendel's dead. We're in the 1990s, the 1890s coming into the 1900s. And people are beginning to think about Darwin. He's gone through 40 years of religious, political, social craziness. He's dead. But his theory has gone back and forth like 2 heavyweight boxers in a ring, fighting over what we should think about the whole thing. But by the beginning of the 20th century, we've got the beginnings of modern science really beginning to come together. And so they're trying to figure out, okay, we've rediscovered Mendel. How do you get new species?
Oh, I didn't even see the rats combined.
You have to start with macromutations. You have to start with something big, right? And in those days, the idea is that every time you have a new trait, you need a new gene. So in those days, the idea was, when they first started talking about genes, well, an ear of corn would have like 17 genes, but humans would have millions because we're so much more complex, right? Do you guys know about gene numbers? It turns out that humans have a tiny number of genes, and some plants have like way more genes than we do. So we should have known, the minute we got to the 1950s, we should have known as we began to think about DNA that it wasn't going to work this way, but that's okay. We go slow. So the idea is new trait, new mutation, or new mutation, new trait. Now this actually does happen. So we have an example of this in some fly species where they will spontaneously generate an extra set of wings. Now, so you're like, that's not a big deal. Okay, so you get pregnant with half an alien, and out pops a beautiful bouncing baby boy with 2 arms and 4 legs. Would you call that a macromutation? Yes, it's a big deal. Okay, so I'm going to macromutate something right in front of you, and we're going to talk about the problems. Okay, I have just macromutated a 3rd eye.
Nice.
On an eye stalk with an elbow, so it can move around, and I can watch you fuckers while I'm writing on the board. And Hamlet's soliloquy, to be or not to be. Yes, asshole, you could ask that question. What? What are you talking about? You asked a question. What? I asked a question? Yes, you did. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. Fuck you. Ooh. That would be a whole different experience of Hamlet, wouldn't it?
Get a new bruise.
Shakespeare would have a really different flavor in life if that happened. Okay, I've macromutated my 3rd eye.
Yes.
Okay? And he and I, they, we get along great most of the time. He's told me to pay attention. Okay, so one of the big questions about macromutations are, if you get a big change, is that a big improvement? So think about it. Most species, for example, you like are you getting used to him? Is he creeping you out? No, you're nice. It's okay. All right, so most species, for example, are pretty well adapted to temperature ranges. So let's say that you're a species that's adapted to about 70 degrees. 70 degrees? Yeah? Okay. 70 degrees Fahrenheit, right? And so the temperature changes all the time, right? Yeah. So temperature changes all the time. It's pretty continuous. Have a great day. Thank you for the great comments. Don't forget to send me a link about that.
Yeah, I copied on my
Yeah, it's all good.
my Mozilla. I forgot my Canvas password, and I finally got this morning.
Have a great one. Okay, so your temperature changes all the time, right? And so as temperature changes, call it global warming, call it global cooling, don't care. Temperature's gradually going to get lower or higher, and you're going to have to adapt to that, right? Yes. Okay. He was waiting. So you're going to have to adapt to that. Now, you get a macromutation, and you go from being adapted to handle 70 degrees temperature range to being able to handle 10,000 degrees.
Oh.
Does that help you? No, because the environment usually changes in small ways. So macromutations are likely to make you less adapted to the environment than no change at all. Okay? In fact, I can show you this. So we know, for example, from 23 million years ago, oh my freaking God. Okay, let me erase this. I'm so glad that neo-Nazism is back to stay. Oh, fucking Christ. Okay.
Out of context.
I can't help it. It was on the back of the friggin' board. Okay. All right. So we have an example from 23 million years ago. For example, 23 million years ago down to the present. So 23 MYA down to the present. Temperatures on average decline. And species over time either adapted to the gradual temperature change or the species went extinct. So here I am, I'm this creature who's pretty well adapted to that temperature, and suddenly I spike my adaptation to I now can handle 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, if I can handle 200 degrees Fahrenheit, can I handle 70 degrees? No. Temperature range is locked into most species. So macromutations it would be better if I didn't adapt at all, because at least I would still be around the right one. Maybe I could move environments. The other thing is that all sexually reproducing species are designed for one thing only, and that is. So, what do you think my chances of getting laid are?
Depends how weird the person is.
Okay, let's try again. What do you think a woman who would like to have children, what do you think the chances are I will be able to have reproductive sex with a woman who would like... Okay, we can drop the I now, because I hope over the few minutes you pretty quickly figured out that is the most disgusting, creepy, weird, stalker, fucked up thing I've ever imagined in my life. Who says yes? Yes. So therefore, any kind of major change is likely to make you less attractive to mates, and that's a disaster. And then finally, the 747 problem. So you let me get away with, because you were very kind and you're nice to your professors, you let me get away with an eye from nothing. And we just got done doing eyes. Eyelids, eyelashes, a stalk, the optic nerve attachment, and even weirder. Remember I discussed the octopus independent eye would have to deal with an environment that can't be two different environments? You've now allowed me to take my eyes, where my dominant and non-dominant eye have finally figured out how to live together, and now I've got a roving eye floating around the middle like some kind of major hallucination event. So, not as quick as you guys figured out, the whole macromutation thing died. Nobody could figure out how to make macromutations work because everything about them is a disaster. Which means the last thing I'm going to do to you today is I'm going to take you just a bit through the math you're going to have to know. So, okay. So, F0. F0, you've got a population, because remember, do individuals evolve or do populations evolve?
Populations.
There it is. Populations evolve, individuals never do. When I went to live in a cave, I wasn't lucky. I was a tall person. I didn't pass on my tall alleles. Because let's say we looked at me, because I'm taller than average, as is all of my family. My DNA for height probably looks something like this across 400 genes. Mostly pluses, right? Not that many minuses. So I didn't get to pass on all those plus alleles. Short people passed on alleles that look more like this. So what's going to get passed on more in a short person? You're going to see more short alleles in the future, okay? So I don't evolve, but the future population averages do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? Now, here's what my 10 adults look like. AA, 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 AS. Nope, still one more AA. AA, AS, AS, AS. Now, whether you know it or not, reproduction doesn't happen inside of you, because what you reproduce leaves you. So males know this, but females have a tendency of thinking that reproduction somehow happens inside of them. Part of it does, right? But nursing is just as much a part of reproduction, isn't it? No nursing, no living, right? And so all of adolescence is outside. So think of it as basically reproduction means your DNA leaving you. Fair? Okay. So the next step is the production of gametes. It's called the F0 gametes. Think of me as a mad scientist. And I'm simply going to take your DNA and your eggs. And I'm gonna go into a dark underground laboratory with concrete and fluorescent lights that go bzzz, bzzz, bzzz. And I'm going to make new humans like Frankenstein. I'm going to put little vats of sperm and eggs and put them together and get minions to rub them together and make little children, put them in cages. Get the idea? Okay, so I gotta get a bunch of sperm and eggs. Thank you for smiling. Don't encourage me. Okay, so what am I gonna end up with? This is gonna be sperm and eggs. It's gonna be an A, right? A. Am I right? How many is that? Is that 1, 2, 3, 4? One more? There's my males, and these are all gonna be females. These are 2 different eggs, 2 different eggs, 2 different eggs. Now, these have now left you because we're doing the mad scientist version. I've taken your eggs, I've taken your sperm, I put them in vats, and now I'm going to make a new generation. Okay, the F1 generation, right? Okay, so all I'm going to do is take my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to take sperm and eggs and combine. And what am I mostly going to get?
AA.
Thank you, AA. I'm mostly get AA. But every once in a while, I'm going to get what?
AS.
Every once in a while, I get AS. Okay? So in fact, it's going to look like this, right? Now, obviously, this would happen at random. But the fact is, I can do it like this as a basic demonstration, correct? Now see what I did? I did it wrong. Sometimes I think I'm thinking, and my brain is not working at all. Okay, I'm going to cross out.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I hope we all understand that one. Okay, another AA. And then we start getting weird. Okay, we get A here and S here, so that's AS. We have A here and A here, so that's AA. I'm not doing this to annoy you. I understand it's annoying. I totally get it. AS. And then I'm missing one here at the AA. Where did I miss one? There it is. And AS. There's my next generation. Okay? But neither am I allowed to do mad scientist experiments, nor am I allowed to do this on a piece of paper and actually get an answer because you can't do the big populations. So you have to do by math. But what we are going to do is go through a 2-generation cycle where we start with parents, we type them, this is their genotypes for this particular trait. Then we're going to pull out their eggs and sperm, and then we're going to turn them into a new population. And in that, we're going to discover evolution, because we're going to discover that every once in a while, if you have AS's over here and AS's over here, what are you also going to get that I never showed you?
SS.
There it is. And it turns out that SS is fatal. So again, we're going to rejigger it and do it a little bit differently. There's going to be a few S's among the males. I split this male and female, doing simple biology, simple. And if there's an AS over here and AS over here, then every once in a while an SS will pop up. You want me to show you? Here we go. Mom, AS. Dad, AS. AA, AS, we're fine. AS, we're fine. Dead. So we're going to talk about how it is that something like a deadly allele for a cancer, for a leukemia, in this case for sickle cell anemia, can actually emerge in a population and actually have a benefit. Because going back to the alcohol thing, you have to first establish the benefit of an evolutionary mutation or an evolutionary event, if you will. You have to establish why it does something for you to understand why it is that under certain conditions, it turns to something bad. So I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I hope I kept you at least mildly entertained on Thursday after a long week in class. Thank you all for your really great participation, comments, questions. Yes. If you get SS, the individual who has it dies.
Yep.
6 on Eve.
Now, of course, there's some cures. We'll talk about that on Monday.
Oh,
That's changing.